Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I know it has been quite some time, but to be honest, my computer I think is getting old enough to where recording is no longer becoming very much of an option, especially live games for Total War Warhammer 3. Maybe not live games, but casting games, whatever else. It's just too low quality. I don't really feel good about posting it, so probably taking a break from regular posting for quite some time, but I had a idea of, you know what, I can make a tier list. This should be relatively low quality, obviously, and so I can easily record this and make some kind of content. But also, giving you a heads up, I probably won't be posting from here on out until, at least not regularly, until maybe I get a better computer or whatever else may happen. Life's a bit busy anyway, so it is what it is. But today we do have a Beastmen tier list. So Beastmen are the #1 faction that I play. I love them to death. I play tons and tons of Beastmen, and they're probably the one faction I can confidently say I feel like I know all the ins and outs of. Now, this tier list is going to kind of encompass... I'm cheating a little here because it's going to encompass land battle domination and campaign. So I'm trying to just give like an overall, like general, what I think each unit is capable of, and I'll kind of preface that whenever I rank them. But regardless, we'll see how it goes here. I'm going to reshape some of these. We're going to say this is the trash tier. Absolute garbage. This will be the needs buff tier. C is going to be situational. B will be good. Or performs as expected. We'll just say expected. A will be the strong tier. This is going to be the tier that you kind of want to take stuff, maybe not every single time, but it's definitely super good. And then the top tier is going to be broken. So these are ones that probably definitely need a nerf. I'm not sure. Maybe nerf's not the right way to say it, but they're definitely really, really, really strong. You basically want to take them in almost any build, every build you can. So to start, we're going to go with the lords. No. Beast Lord right here. Beast Lord is a needs buff, and we're going to put Khazrak in there with him. They're basically kind of the same. Khazrak is a lot better, I would say, just because of the dark mail ability, but Beast Lord's cheaper and has 2 buffing abilities, so they can kind of do the same job. It's just Khazrak is a lot tankier, but also more expensive. So I'm going to throw them in the same kind of bracket. They're decent-ish foot lords, but you're not going to want to take them as a foot lord. You have way better options, and they just... I don't know. They just don't perform that great. They're really not that good. Chariot lords, so they have a decent potential to output damage if your opponent, lets you, but for the most part, not going to be your favorite thing. There was a point where Khazrak was, I would say, maybe not broken, but like definitely in strong, because the way chariots were working at the beginning of Total War Warhammer 3, or at least Immortal Empires, he was actually basically an anti-cav lord. He could pretty much 1v1 Blood Knights, which was pretty nuts. So there was a time where he was shining in the sun, but that has since been changed. Neither of these guys are going to be too impressive. Other lord, Great Bray Shaman, I think is going to be broken. And the only reason I'm saying broken is because Traderkin is bonkers. Traderkin is super duper duper good. The moment Traderkin gets nerfed, he's going to be down and strong. You can basically take him every single time. In campaign and battle, he's going to pay for himself. Campaign especially. He just has so much damage with that Traderkin. He's absolutely bonkers. And in battles, he's super dirt cheap. He's like 1,000 gold just with a Traderkin and then a chariot, so he's going to be hard to get a hold of. He can be sniped pretty easy. That's probably the one big downside. If you're up against like a Tzeentch player, you probably don't want to bring him because Blue Fire will just kill him. So he is very snipeable, but for the most part, for the amount you're paying, he's just absolutely ludicrous. And I'm actually going to put the hero variant, the Bray Shaman, up here as well for the exact same reasons. Super dirt cheap, Traderkin, chariot, beautiful. Moving on back to the lords here. The Doombull. Doombull, I think, is strong. I'm not going to say he's broken. And probably, I don't know. I guess you could put him in expected. It's like a toss-up between the two. I'm being biased because I like the Doombull a lot. I love his aesthetic and I really like his abilities. Basically, he has the Slaughterer's Call, which gives a permanent buff, and then he also debuffs stuff he hits with the Dazed effect. So you pair him with something like Razor Gores and they can kill Scarbrand. Like, it's actually really, really good. So he's a really good Goon Squad character. I think he's honestly pretty great. He is a little tad expensive, but he's a monstrous lord. Like, you are getting what you're paying for. I think he's definitely good. Expected, I don't know. If I put him in strong, I feel like that's just bias. So we'll leave him in expected. That is what it is. His counterpart, Tarox, is pretty much in the same boat. It's basically the exact same thing as Khazrak. They do pretty much the same thing, but Tarox is way tankier. Probably has a little bit more damage output, late game carry potential added in there. But the big difference is, yeah, the Doom Bowl does have better buffing abilities because of that. They both have Slaughter's Call, but because of that day's contact effect, he's actually going to be given stuff like your Razor Gores, Centigores a better chance in the melee. So he's a better support lord while still being the melee brawler, but he's not going to be able to melee brawl as good as Tarks can. Tarks also has the flaming attacks, which this guy can bring an ability to buff it, but, you know, to each their own. I think they're both expected. I don't know. Tarks, I want to say borderline's the strong, but I would want to put the Doom Bowl up there as well. So maybe we finagle this in a minute, but we'll leave that as is for now. Their hero variant, the Gore Bowl, I think is situational. He gets still flung around so much. He's a bouncy ball. Gets flung around all the time. He does have really nice anti-large potential, but since Beastman's recent DLC, there's just better options. So I'm going to say situational for the Gorbel. He's not bad. You can definitely still take him. And in the event that you have like a Caster Lord or Malagor, like you might want that melee brawler hero, but I just think there's better options. So we're going to leave him situational for now. Speaking of Malagor, I think Malagor's strong. Man, this is difficult because like I want to put him in. This is what we're going to do. So we're going to bump up Tarox because of the campaign. Tarox is much better in campaign than a Doom Bowl is. In fact, I think he can even get the day's contact effect, so it basically nullifies that difference. And then Malagor we're going to put in strong for the same reason, because campaign, he's actually a pretty decent lord. He's not the Doom stack he was in Total War Warhammer 2, but he's definitely better than like a Doom Bowl, for example. And he's really fast, so if you are taking him in a competitive battle, you can get tons of value out of him. Flock of Doom is super strong. He's got the Pendulum as well. And he's just, like, basically impossible to catch. He's like 120-something move speed in the air. So, actually a fairly decent lord, 100%. We'll leave him in strong. I don't think he's broken. I don't think he needs nerfs. I almost never bring him, but, like, if that's your playstyle, that's the lord you want, 100%. Morgur is going to be in the broken status. And this, I don't know, this is just always the age-old Beastman thing with Morgur. He's kind of just the best legendary lord in, I would argue, campaign as well as in land battle or domination, competitive battle in general. Basically, in campaign, he actually becomes bonkers because he has that DOT effect, Mortis Engine effect. And he's just so unsnipeable. He's got like 75 missile resistance base, maybe it's 70. And he doesn't take damage. You can't snipe him. This is the go-to Tzeentch counter lord. You pick him every time. He does have regen, so he does have a weakness to fire. But, like, he's just unsnipeable. And I guess, you know, you can go with a Doom Bowl or Torax if you want instead against Tzeentch. But, like, Wood Elves especially, you really want to take him in those certain matchups. And I think, campaign-wise, his faction gives the best buffs. Cheaper buildings, better replenishment. He's absolutely crazy. And the buffs he gives to, like, Jabberslights, which will also show up on this tier list, kind of nuts. He's either broken or... Yeah, because of the campaign performance, I'm going to leave him broken. He's probably in the strong... I don't know that we need to nerf him. I wouldn't nerf him for, like, a competitive multiplayer bit, and then nobody wants nerfs in campaign, so I would not nerf him. This broken tier does not mean nerfs. The Bray Shamans and Great Bray Shaman are the exception because of Traderkin, but even then, you're not nerfing them, you're nerfing a spell, so... Very strong, though. 100%. Do we have any other lords? We've got the Wargore, which I'm going to say is situational as well. He's really decent, he is, but you don't need to bring him in matchups. 600 gold is like super dirt cheap, and if you've got two of them, they can actually goon out a character like Sigvald pretty well. So there's definitely a good use for him, and they can hold the front line somewhat decently, you know, Silver Shield. They're kind of like an infantry variant of the Zangors, which aren't on this list. Oh, bonkers. I need to get the Zangors in here. Oh well. Either way, very durable, but they just don't kill that much. Unless, of course, you're like, oh, I'm up against the Warriors of Chaos. I need to take out fetching Sigvald and Akold, and I actually don't think they can beat up Akold. He's a little bit too broken. The Severed Claw and stuff. So, like, there's definitely reasons to take them at certain times, but for the most part, you don't need them too much. Especially in campaign, I wouldn't say they're too useful, so we're gonna leave in situational. Still a fun unit, definitely good in certain situations. So let's move on to the units here. We're gonna go with the Ungors first because they're kind of the cheapest. I think all of them perform as expected, except for I'm gonna put the Ungors, the cheapest variant, in strong, and this is for 2 reasons. Number one, where's the other one? There it is. They're just the cheapest, which is really nice. And then in campaign, you can spam limitless amounts of them. So they're really good frontline. They're dirt cheap. In campaign or in battle, like competitive battle, they're just a really, really good meat shield. So they do exactly what you want and probably a little bit better. The other two are performing just as expected. They're a little bit more expensive, but I really don't think you want to put shields and durability. Like you're not trying to spend too much on chaff units anyway. So I never go for them. But you know, if you got the extra money, it works as well. That's where they're going to go for sure. The Ungor Raiders, however, are in the broken tier status. They are something you just want to spam in campaign basically permanently. Armies of Ungor Raiders are super duper duper cost effective, and in land battles they're also pretty much the exact same. They'll shoot down stuff in the air. They'll basically pay for themselves no matter what you're targeting. Well, maybe not no matter what you're targeting, but you know, it gives the Beastmen basically that cheap archer backline unit. Super duper duper useful. The fact that they can't be seen means they're not going to get sniped by. They have the stock. They're not going to get sniped by artillery and stuff of that nature. So definitely a worth it unit to take, 100%. And basically in every single situation, they're going to be in every single army, campaign or competitive battle. So they definitely earn that broken tier status. Then again, I wouldn't say nerf them. I wouldn't say nerf them because they really aren't that strong. Like they're not deciding games, but yeah, I wouldn't say nerf them. Either way. Moving on, let's get to the Gore Herd. The shields, I'm gonna, you know, if the Zangors didn't exist, I would say they were strong, but since Zangors exist, they're gonna be unexpected just because they're typically the front line I like to go for. They're a little bit more durable. They're not as chaffy and super die easy as the Ungor Raiders. But now that Zangors are in, and Zangors are literally just 150 gold more expensive, and they're so much tankier, it kind of makes these guys' job not nearly as, you know, needed. In which case, it actually bumps down the other Gore Herd as well. They're going to be situational because, I don't know. I like durability infantry. This is a bit biased to my playstyle. I do not rely on my infantry to be the killing power in my armies, so I like stuff with shields and more melee defense than more killing power. If these guys had an anti-infantry profile, which I really think they should, since everything with dual weapons in Warhammer 3 has bonus versus infantry, I would think that they hit a little bit harder. They would have that, you know, berserker designated anti-infantry role. They'd be much better. But for now, they're just like a squishier, slightly harder hitting version of the Gores, and Gores are not what are going to be killing the enemy army. So they kind of just don't fit the role that they're displayed as. So we're gonna get them a situational because they're not bad either. They're definitely great, but yeah, I don't know. Stuff left to be desired for sure. The ROR variants, I actually forgot about the Destroyers of Drakwold. I think they are strong. They're poison, and basically the fact that they're just way stickier than these guys are, because they stick around a lot longer, they're actually really, really good. If you can get them on a large target and tie it down somewhat, especially with that poison, like Ungor Raiders shooting into it, this actually pairs really, really well. They're definitely strong. I would not say you need to take them in every build, though. Not at all. The ROR version for the Gore Herd, the Blackhorns Ravagers, I think are also strong. Big reason is they just have all those defensive buffs that make Zangor super good. Now, they don't have a ton of armor, but they have perfect vigor and stock, so they're not going to get blasted on the way in, and then they just stick around for super long. So, especially in like domination battles, I think they're really, really good. I'd probably put them in broken for domination battles because they are really good at sneaking around to the enemy backline and that back point and actually taking it because they have really good staying power. So, and they're stocked, so the opponent doesn't see it coming. In campaign, obviously you can only have one of them, but I think they pay for themselves every single time. Maybe not pay for themselves, but they do their job excellently. So, strong tier for them. Moving on upwards, Zangors would be in broken. We're gonna say honorable, like little blank spot somewhere here is the Zangors. They are absolutely busted. They're probably the strongest unit on the roster. I don't actually know that I am willing to say that though. I'm not gonna say they're the strongest unit, but for the Beastmen playstyle and what Beastmen are known for, they really change the dynamic. Because typically, if you're going to go cheap infantry, which Beastmen want to always go, cheaper at least, medium tier, whatever, they're going to be really, really squishy. And Zangors change that entirely. They're 80 armor, silver shields. They need some kind of dedicated piece to remove them, which is just so, so valuable for Beastmen players. It makes your armies so much more durable. Your killing stuff is going to kill just as easily, and then that front line that's just meant to hold stuff in place is still going to be there, which is something Beastmen really have struggled to have, and having that now is like super duper strong. So I want to say they're 100% broken. I think they do deserve some nerfs, at least some price increases, or maybe some stat debuffs, but yeah, they would definitely be in the broken tier. That's the Zangors. The Bestigors they need a buff. They did get a buff. They got a melee defense buff, but they're just so expensive. I think if you made them cheaper, people might bring them. I think you can make the Zangors more expensive and them a bit cheaper, so people are actually trying to pick between the two, because they are the more killy kind of elite Beastman infantry. It's just, I don't know. Shock infantry just doesn't really have a place in this game, so it's kind of just what they are. I think way back in Warhammer 2, they did have a moment of awesomeness when cavalry charges could get reflected back at them by high charge bonus infantry. So in that time, Bestigors were pretty much strong. I wouldn't say broken, but you know, they had their moment in the sun. They're just, I don't know, they're too expensive for what they do. Armor piercing attacks, there's so many better options in the Beastman roster. You almost never want to take them unless you're, you know, just trying to make them work. But I love Bestigors. I think they're great. And in the event that you're taking them, I would say, like, it would be tempting to put him in trash, but in the event that you're taking him campaign with Kozrak, he actually has some pretty nutty buffs for him. And they've got great auto-resolve weight, so that's a fun army. And they look cool, so we're leaving them not at the bottom tier. To be frank, I don't think anything's going to make it to bottom tier. Beastmen have a really good roster. So that is the infantry, I do believe. I'm not missing out on anything there. We'll get the flying infantry out of the way. The Harpies are, I would say, expected. Like, they could be strong because they can kill Furies. They're just situational. You want to take them against, like, Dwarves to get rid of the Choppers. You want to take them against any of the Demon factions to deal with Furies. They are your annoying flyer unit that can basically invalidate certain other flying units. Now, they're not going to even dance with, like, flying cavalry or flying monsters. They're basically pathetic in that, right? So you don't need to be taking them a ton. They're not going to really kill backlines super well either, so I think they do their job just fine. I don't think I would classify them as super strong. They got a price decrease with Warhammer 3, which is really nice. So they're really easy to take, really easy to fit in an army when you kind of need it. So almost situational, but definitely better than that. So we're going to leave them unexpected. Pretty happy with their performance. Moving on, let's get the other flyer out of the way. Oh, actually, whoops, we missed Korok's Man Rippers. I want to say these guys are situational. They're basically like the elite version of the Destroyers of Drakwold because they have that anti-large profile. They don't have poisoned attacks, so they can't tie stuff down as well, but they are really good at killing anti-large stuff. The problem is, again, they're infantry. It's a halberd infantry unit. Like, luckily, they're spread out. They have that loose formation, so they're not going to get, like, bodied as much by certain spells, but they're just so slow. I mean, for an infantry unit, they're actually still pretty fast. I think they're about 40 speed. But monsters are typically like 60-something, right? So you can't really guarantee the matchup. So they're definitely good situationally. I think you can definitely take them. Definitely better than the normal variant, but you know, still stuff to be improved, I would say. So yeah, the Manticore, the other flying unit on the roster, is expected. It's a Manticore. It's the same across all the other rosters. It does what you want. Cheap, terror, beautiful. You might want it, but you do have a Beastcaster. If Trader Kid ever gets nerfed, you can take Laura Beast, and then there you go. You have a summonable Manticore. So, you know, nothing much to say about that. Let's go through some of the other cheaper things. The dogs, I think, again, they're dogs. They're on many rosters. They do exactly what you expect them to. Poison Hound variant can be nice to help debuff and maybe win some cav fights, but, you know, a little more expensive. Hounds units are great units. You always probably want to have one or two, but, I mean, we can probably put them in strong, honestly. Because they're really good at running down units. They're really good at cleaning stuff up. And yeah, super solid unit. Gotta love a Hound. You almost want them every time in, maybe like one or two every time in a competitive battle. But, you know, in campaign, obviously, you're kind of just getting rid of them right away. So can't put them in the top of the tiers. Let's see. Other cavalry units. Where's the normal Centaurs? Right here. I want to say these are strong. They are probably one of the better anti-skirmish pieces in the game. They are super fast, have perfect vigor, bronze shield, low armor, so they're still pretty squishy, but it's typically enough to get them to help them stay alive long enough to get on top of skirmish cav, which is what I would say is their primary use. At least primary utility I use them for is to kill those skirmish cav that are really annoying to tie down. They are pretty darn good at still cycle charging backlines and killing, archers. So they do all the other jobs you'd kind of want a light cav option to do. They're a little expensive for light cav, but their performance speaks for itself. That's basically why they're pretty penny in comparison. Now the armor piercing variant is going to be much more expensive. That is a 900 cost unit. And I think they perform as expected. You could probably throw them in the same tier. They're just so expensive. Armor piercing is really nice, but there's cheaper or better armor piercing options in the Beastmen roster. So I like them a lot. I love to use them, but I'm not going to put them in strong. We're going to leave them here for now. Their ROR variant, though, it's still just so expensive. Sons of Goros are 1,200 gold. But they do have extra armor. Magical attacks can be really useful. So it's kind of like that situational bit, but obviously they're stronger. We're going to leave them in the same tier. Definitely some to take. They're like the durability of these guys with their shields against ranged. Same speed. Yeah, better in melee. I don't know. It's just expensive is the problem. We'll leave them here because they're probably your best cav option. If you really want some hard-hitting cav, you'll go with that. Now, actually, the best cav you have is the skirmish cav. These are broken. Centaur throwing axes do all of the things. They're slightly cheaper than the great weapons, and they have the armor-piercing missiles, which means they basically get the same value without dying. So that's nuts. And then they have pretty much the same profile, at least the same effectiveness as the normal Centaurs, in the fact that they can run down, not skirmishers. They can kind of beat skirmishers though. Like it's a trade. Not really the place you want them to be. You want them throwing axes at more priority targets. But they can, do the hounds job. They can run down routing units. They can also get into the back line and disrupt archers. But for the most part, you bring them for those throwing axes and that high DPS that's really easy to guarantee against other flyers or big monsters, lords, whatever it may be. Super duper strong unit. Their ROR version, I would say, is also in the same place as them. It's still more expensive. You probably don't want to take it as much as these guys, but they have poison and a regen effect, so they're better. I think that warrants the cost difference, especially with the poison. If you can match them, you get like one of these and two of these. They'll poison whatever's chasing them, and basically nothing can catch them. So definitely good units. Love both those. You can take them in almost any army. You can take them in any army, and they will more than likely pay for themselves as long as you're playing correctly with them. I think that's all of the cavalry. Oh no, it's not. I mean, I guess this is a monster. Razor Gores, I think, are strong. They're basically the cheap version of Centaurs with great weapons. They have the armor piercing. They're absolutely bonkers when you pair them with the right things, like the Doom Bull, for example. And they're so cheap, 600 gold. They do rampage, but they're so cheap that they're nuts. You throw them against Empire Knights, 600 gold, they'll beat the Empire Knights. Or at least they'll trade super cost effectively into them. I'm pretty sure of that. Same thing goes for like Winged Lancers or the Griffin Legion. Like they'll hit cavalry, armored cavalry, super duper hard, and just really make it not worth your opponent's time to engage that fight. Now, obviously, they're kind of slow, so it's kind of hard to guarantee said fights, but not a perfect unit, but dirt cheap, tons of performance, tons of value you can get out of them. Super strong unit. I love them to death. The bacon is definitely a strong unit to take. Let's go with probably the chariots. I am on and off about chariots. I think the Tuskor chariots are just cheaper, so they're better. They kind of do the same thing. Razor Gores still have tons of utility. Like chariots in general always have their place. I just don't think they're that strong at the moment as like a damage option. And they require so much micro that oftentimes the advantage you get with them doesn't, is lost somewhere else. So I'm going to say they're expected or situational. Like that could just be up to my playstyle though. If you are a micro god and you just love clicking as many buttons as possible, chariots probably are for you. You can probably actually get tons of value out of them and move them up to strong. I don't know about broken though. I just don't think that they're that good. I don't think I can put them in broken, so because there's certain armies you wouldn't want to take them either anyway. So anyway, that's where the chariots are going to be. Let's move on to the monstrous infantry. Chaos spawn are... I don't know. I would say strong, because of all the chaos spawn, Beastmen probably have the best, because they're super cheap, have poison attacks and whatnot, at least for chaos spawn. However, they recently, Beastmen have gotten their Minotaurs buffed. And we're going to do them at the same time. I think all of the Minotaurs are strong, and I would rather take Minotaurs than Chaos Spawn, even though they're more expensive. Minotaurs just kill things so quickly, and they can ramp up a lot of kills, especially the anti-infantry variant, if you're up against something that doesn't have a ton of missiles, so like vampire counts, and a decent amount of infantry, you can get such a huge buff out of them with their slaughter's call? No. I'm forgetting the passive, but they have their Blood Greed, I think, passive. I could be wrong about that. Either way, it's the Minotaur passive, and it ramps up their weapon strength and melee attack. And so when they get 200 kills, they're basically doubled in effectiveness. And the anti-infantry can be super duper good situationally. I wouldn't say they're the best variant per se, but they can stack that up better than the rest. Great weapons are amazing. They are your heavy cav killers. You want them against Blood Knights. You want them against Bretonia. You want them against Kislev. Super duper good to have, especially killing those large single entities as well. So awesome unit to have. And then the shielded variant is probably just the safest pick. They still hit super duper hard, but they have silver shields on a monstrous infantry, which makes them extremely durable. And all of them are the same price. So different play styles for each. All of them have their place and perform super duper well, especially at the moment. The Butchers of Kalkengard are the most expensive at 1,500 gold, but they've got regen and terror, which is really nice. So in the event that you're not taking some kind of monster or terror-causing piece, they can cover that for you. And they, hit just as hard and they regenerate. So silver shields, again, super tanky. Basically just the tankier version of these guys. They typically have a pretty high target on their back, though, which luckily, silver shields and regen can help kind of counter. But, if someone brings dedicated fire, they can get countered pretty easy. So I wouldn't say they're more broken than the others, especially with the, cost increase as it is. But super duper strong unit. Love all the Minotaurs. And I think they outshine this Chaos Spawn in the moment. So Chaos Spawn are going to take a little bit of a knockdown, especially in campaign. So it is what it is. Moving on to the final fun bits here. The Giant is, I guess, situational. Like, I would still say they need a buff, but in the event that you're up against like a vampire count player, you can probably get away with taking Giants. They're like a cheaper version of a Gorgon. They just hit super freaking hard. Vampire counts, Warriors of Chaos, those units that don't have, or those factions that don't have tons of missiles and have to like grind in the melee, Giants can definitely pay for themselves. I still think Gorgons are better though, 100%, even though they're more expensive. So I could say needs buff, but they could get a million buffs and they'd be the exact same unit. So it's just never changing. That is what that is. I guess, okay, we're going to do Cygor next. Cygor is super situational. Then the big reason is, like, it's a strong unit, especially the Eye of Morslib. Like, the Eye of Morslib is better because it has that net. But at the end of the day, they just are so counterintuitive to the Beastmen playstyle. The Beastmen playstyle is a rush faction. They want to rush, they want to get in the melee and kill the opponent on the opponent's end of the map. Cygors are that artillery piece that stays in the back and accrues value. Like, they're just not a, I don't know. They're good. Like, situationally, you want to make it work, you definitely can. And they're a strong unit, they're a fun unit. I love Cygors. Especially in campaign, you can really make it work. But I think they're too different. They're too different from the rest of all of the units on the roster and what they want to do. So I'm going to leave them in situational for now. Now let's get to the Jabberslythe. I think the Jabberslythes, both variants, are busted. This may be a personal preference or personal pick, but they just have crazy animations, and that's really all there is to it. They cause terror, which is obviously nice. 1,700 gold. I think it's 2,100 for the Broodmother, but this is really good against like dwarves, heavily armored factions, Chaos Warriors, and the like. But like, they have a decent missile resist. They're kind of hard to shoot because their animations are just so jank, and I love them to death. They are the best disruptors in the entire game. You can't keep them off of your backline. Like, it's impossible. They'll push through any infantry. They'll push through most cavalry, in fact. They have the craziest animations, and I love them for it. Do they need a nerf? I would say no, but maybe. I guess the reason I'd say no is because I don't see how I could understand how you would nerf them, because they're already relatively squishy. I guess you can make them squishier, but it just makes it such a 50-50 unit that'd feel bad. But like they're bonkers. They'll run all the way across the map. If you keep them charging, you like charge one unit, send it to another, send it to another. Like they'll eviscerate entire archer lines just by themselves. They're beautiful. And they disrupt your whole enemy army's like formation. They'll murder box builds. They're just so beautiful. I love them so much. But like I don't know how I would nerf them. Other like the thing that would make me the saddest and probably balance them the most is like removing some of their animations, which CA is not going to do, and please don't ever, because I love their animations. That's what makes this unit so much fun, is just how crazy they move around and how, I don't know, how janky they are. They will fly across the map just to get to enemy archers, and I love them for it. So they're basically, think like Stegodon, Stonehorn, but way better. They do all of those things, jobs to the max. They're insane. Love them to death. Jabberslythe, OP, 100%. I'd probably put them... personally, I would say Jabberslythe's the most broken. A lot of people will fight me on that. That's just my opinion. They are a little expensive, so, you know, you got to commit to it. But I think they can work in every army. Gorgons are in the strong tier. The only reason I say this is because... And they both belong there, even the more expensive variant. I mean, the more expensive variant's arguably stronger. They're kind of situational. You want to take them against, you know, vampire counts, the same kind of plethora of super not missile factions, but really tanky in the grind kind of factions. But again, I mean, their regen's nice, but, you know, it's like the Minotaurs do the same job for cheaper. They just don't have as much staying power. They're not as frightening. So Gorgons, I'm going to say, are strong. And to be honest, that kind of follows the same theme with most of the Beastmen units. Is they do their job, they do it well. There's others that can do it, and it's just the price difference of like what you want to pick, what your playstyle is. They're the same speed as Minotaurs, so you know, it's really up to you. It is a super big centerpiece that can get shot to pieces, so you got to be careful with it, and that's why I say I think Minotaurs can be a little bit better in said situations. But you know, that's the story of the Beastmen roster, is like, how do you want to kill things? You have a bunch of different options, and the situational stuff is the stuff that either can't do the job very well or just does a completely different job from the rest of the roster. So hopefully you enjoyed watching my little tier list. This is just, you know, a Beastman lover kind of going through what I would say is the best or worst, and I think this translates extremely well to campaign. Basically, I would, if you're playing campaign, build everything in the strong tier and upwards. And then if you're feeling frisky, you can, obviously you have unit, like your units are free, right? So you can take everything. If you want to make funny, unique armies, you can kind of dabble in the situational stuff. But I wouldn't spend your campaign unique resource on anything below the strong tier, just because all these units are perfect. This will do everything you ever need it to do. This whole section is absolutely beautiful. And yeah, so that's all there is to it. Hopefully you did enjoy the video. Sorry if it's a little bit long. Haven't done a tier list before, but I thought, you know what? Since I can't really record gameplay anymore, we'll give it a tier list and let you all know that that's kind of what's happening. Might be a long time till you ever see me again. I don't know if I'll be posting videos on the regular or what in the future. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the future holds. So thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you later.